Tyler Wagner. I'm so excited to be having this conversation today. How are you? And thank you for being here.
Yes, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And I'm pumped just as much as you. And before we hit record, we had like the best convo. So sorry to everybody.
I know. I'll have to remember everything we talked about because we shared some good stuff there. But yeah, and we learned how kind of interconnected we are. And we know a lot of the same people, which is so awesome. So before we get into your business, which we're going to talk a lot about because there's so many people out there that want to write a book, and we'll have that whole conversation. But what is your backstory? How did you get into the line of work that you're doing today?
Yeah, so it's cool. I actually fell into it. So I was in college. I was in my second year of college in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. And
oh, you were at USC?
Yeah, USC. Yeah.
Awesome.
And, yeah, go Cox, go Gamecocks, right? So just make sure everything's talking about. Regardless, I read this book. One of my entrepreneur friends was like, "You got to read this book called The 4-Hour Workweek." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like a scam. Like, I'm not going to read this book." And then next thing you know, I'm reading it and I keep turning the page and I finish it in like 4 or 5 days. And honestly, before that, the only book I had really ever read was like half of Harry Potter when I was younger. And I had decided that I hated reading. So it was just like, that was the first book that like, I was like, oh my God, I actually like to read. It's just what was put in front of me when I was younger wasn't the material I was seeking, I guess. So regardless though, that book literally like changed my brain or something and made me realize that basically two things. One is college was not going to get me to where I wanted to be. So it was like, why would I pay for something for a degree or diploma when that diploma won't even get me what I want? So that kind of clicked. And then the second thing was, entrepreneurship can be risky, but it's actually not as risky as I feel like people make it out to seem, in the sense of like, if it's calculated, it's like solving people's problems, right? So the 4-Hour Work Week, what it showed, it's like, okay, here's how you can start a business. Here's how you can hire virtual assistants. And it's like the worst thing that could happen is you end back at home with your parents and you start over again, right? Like he has a formula in the book where it's like you run all your decisions through this formula of what's the worst that could happen. And my parents do pretty well. So in my mind, the movie Billy Madison, if you've ever heard of that movie with Adam Sandler, I was like, oh, well, end back in my parents' pool, whatever, like not that bad. So I was like, I drop out of college. And I was like, I want to be a public speaker. And then I realized that most public speakers were best-selling authors. I decided to write a book called Conference Crushing. It becomes an Amazon bestseller. Next thing you know, hundreds of people are asking me how I wrote it, published, and marketed it. And 12 years later, we've done over 3,000 books.
You've done over 3,000 books?
Yeah. Whether being published, ghostwritten, or marketed combined, we're a little over 3,000 that we've like worked with authors on.
Wow. That's really incredible.
Yeah, it's and I had no vision of this at all. Like when I wrote my book, it was 100% to pursue public speaking like we were talking about. And this just took off way quicker. Like, because everybody wants to write a book, or at least that's what it seems like in my world.
Well, there is. I run across so many people that want to write a book and just, how do I do it? And I always like people refer, oh, you need to talk to my friend Sandee, and I'll get on a call with them and I help them out and, this and that. And before we hit record, I was telling you, because when I was looking, I always prepare for my interviews, usually like 20 minutes before the interview starts. And I'm looking at your website. I'm like, where the frick was he? February of 2021, when my second book was released, because we're in the middle of a global pandemic. I had no idea. I mean, I had been on Facebook for years because not because I was running a business. And I had no idea what to do. I literally did nothing for my book launch. I didn't have a book launch. My husband videotaped me opening up the book when I got my first copy, which half of my family had already gotten their copy before I got mine. I had to order it on, I had to order it on Amazon because I hadn't ordered, you get so many free ones from your publisher or whatever, and I hadn't gotten theirs yet. And so we did that was my book. That was it. And I'd never videotaped myself ever. And it was just hysterical, you know, and it's still out on YouTube. So, you know, it was just hysterical because I'm like, I've never even videotaped myself. I just had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
So this is such a valuable service because, well, I'm going to let you talk about it because there's a lot of myths about publishing because I know people come to me and they're like, well, you know, should I get a literary agent? And, you know, I want to get a publisher. And I'm like, because I don't want to have to do anything. And I'm like, so can you talk about that? Because what people don't realize is like, even if you're picked up by the biggest publisher on the planet, you still have to market your own book.
Yeah.
Unless you're J.K. Rowling's, right?
Yeah. And even her, though, I mean, it's interesting because, like, I just had one of my mentors on my podcast, and he just launched a book, and it was with one of the top 5 publishers, and he was actually open about it, that he was not happy with it, right? Like, and he said if he could go back, he would have self-published. So what I want to say is that here's how I view it. I think like a decade or so ago, a traditional publisher was way more valuable than they are now. The only true like value I see in traditional publishing now, and there is some big values actually. One is the distribution into the bookstores and stuff, right? So if you self-publish, you can actually get into the stores, but it takes a lot of legwork and groundwork and stuff. Whereas if you're with a traditional publisher like HarperCollins or something, you're in the stores pretty much. Like you'll get in there. So there is a benefit. And then I'd say the brand, right? So if the brand of having like a Penguin or Harper on the book is important to you, do your thing. And there are some benefits of like a network that they have. Other than that, though, the reality is, and I've heard the story over and over again, if you publish with one of them, they're not going to do any marketing for you. There's nothing, like literally they're like, okay, great, you signed. And you don't even have full creative control over your book anymore. Like they actually have the end say normally. And then they're going to take 80, 90% of the royalties and you're doing all the marketing. So to me, doesn't seem like the best deal I've ever heard. So I think the other way, and I'll actually speak to like Authors Unite, just easier for me to speak about what we do. We work with people wherever they're at. We'll meet you where you're at, but we can do everything from the writing all the way to like continued marketing. So a picture I could paint is if you came to us with a book idea, we could write the book for you, edit it, publish it, market it to a major bestseller list like Wall Street Journal, even New York Times. And then at the end too, we have partners that will refer out to that help with like PR and reviews. So at the end of this, you could have like thousands of reviews and featured in all these outlets. And I'll give you some of these contacts after the show if you'd like. But it's just incredible. And that's how I've kind of built this is I saw that the biggest hole in the market was there's a lot of publishers, but they don't do marketing. So Authors Unite was kind of the bridge, for that. I was like, okay, if I offer marketing too, and it's good, I think people will either come to me for the whole package or they'll come to me for the marketing part at least. And that's become true. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I was on your website, which is Authors Unite, correct? AuthorsUnite.com. You have so many client success stories, and every single one of them are at least one or two, like Wall Street Journal bestselling author, USA Today bestselling author. I mean, I think it looks like most of these people are all they're on like at least one or two of these sites. I mean, that's really incredible.
Yeah. And that's, I think you're probably looking at the homepage. I am. In my, and if you, cause you've been to our website, you've probably seen some of our retargeting ads. So we've been chasing you on the internet, but like, I actually have, like I said, we've done over 3,000 books now, and out of those, probably over 2,000 are marketing. So, we've done a lot of bestseller campaigns, so we really understand how they work. And what I want to tell people too, actually real quick, is that becoming a bestseller is just the start, because I think that's a misconception a lot of times is like, oh, you're a bestseller, like, that's it. But in reality, once you become a bestseller, that's when you would really want to put your foot on the gas and like leverage the accolade, right? And that's when things can really happen. So just so people know, it's not like you become a bestseller and then you're on the beach, it's that's actually when the work starts, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because I know you have a client testimonial on there that he got asked to paid to speak on
Yeah.
stage. So yeah, I mean, that's what happens. You need to get on the speaking tour. You've got to, do
Podcast.
also, I mean, there's so much you have to do.
Yeah. No, 100%. Speaking, podcasting, featured blogs, even TV nowadays. Like I have some clients that have been on Good Morning America and stuff. And like, I think there's this balance, right? So to me, Good Morning America, they do have an audience, but it's more about the brand, right? Because you could do like Facebook ads and spend way less money than it would take to like get up to that level of Good Morning America. And you could be seen by millions of people, with online advertising. It's not. So I think there's a balance of branding and then visibility. And if you can combine them effectively, you could have a book that just takes off. And we've had some authors that have achieved that too, where, they start out, we get them tens of thousands of sales, let's say 20,000 sales. A couple years later, it hits like the tipping point that Malcolm Gladwell talks about. And then it's hundreds of thousands, millions of copies sold. And again, these are outliers, right? But like it can happen. So it has to be a good book, get it in enough hands, and then it can take off on its own. But you need both parts of the equation for that to have a chance.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories of people, 5 years after they released their book, they finally became a best-selling author.
That's the thing, right? So I love that you said that, because it's not even, a lot of people will come to me too. They're like, well, if my book's already out, can I still do a bestseller campaign with you? And I'm like, dude, we've done books that are over 10 years old. Like you can literally like rebirth a book. Like you can do it. So it's never too late, I guess, is the story there.
Yeah, for sure. So you're running this amazing business. And I always like to ask entrepreneurs a couple of key questions, because I know I have a lot of business owners that listen to my podcast, because we all need a dose of happiness, right?
Yes.
So what is it that you do that keeps you grounded because running a business, you're juggling a lot of balls. There's, you got to manage your stress levels. There's all sorts of things. What do you do? And what advice can you give to others to help, keep you grounded, keep your head on straight? You're like, okay, I got this.
Yeah, I think focusing on health as number one. So like I actually have a doctor. I don't say this, I'm just saying so you see how like much into health I actually am. Like I have a doctor that I pay about 6 figures a year to, just like directly. He's not in insurance outside of
Oh yeah, I've heard about those services. Yeah.
And so that is really my answer though, because I think that there's like this evolution of an entrepreneur, and what it is you do everything yourself, and then you can hit about like, low 7 figures that way, maybe. And then you burn out, and then you realize you have to give up control and focus back on your health to scale further. And that's what I did. So like I do IVs every week. I work out every morning. I have a sauna and red light thing in my place here that I rent here. I'm actually traveling right now. I'm down in South America at the moment. But so, it's really focusing on health first to make sure my like brain and body are working at the highest performance it can. And then work is actually like second, and I think if you want to get to the like, high 7, 8 figures, and I'm not at 9 figures, so I don't know yet, but at least to the high 7, 8, you need to really, because this thing just is always rattling, I think as entrepreneurs, we're always thinking we could always do something, and that's great. But sometimes the thing you should do is go sit in the sauna for 30 minutes and don't do anything, ice baths, they're really good. I've had, I don't know, you just feel amazing after. So just a routine of health. That's the answer.
I love that, because, I'm still rebuilding my business and really like just having a different focus and whatnot. And I already picked up on that yeah. Because I'm such a high performer in everything that I do. And the piece that was really missing in my life was that, well, I was playing tennis. All my listeners know I'm obsessed with tennis.
Yeah.
And I started getting these injuries. And I'm like, wait, I'm a former professional athlete. How am I getting injured? Well, it's like, duh, I'm not going to the gym. I'm not doing any strength training. And so I've added that into my life. And I tell you what, I worked out with a trainer this morning. It just sets the tone for the day. And I know this, right? But you get complacent, I mean, I was, when I was a skater, that was 20 years ago. So 20 years have passed. And I definitely got complacent, and I was been so focused on work for the past 10 years. And now the past 2.5 years, really focusing on rebuilding my coaching practice. And I wasn't putting that forward. I mean, I'm still very health conscious, but I can really attest the whole exercise portion of it is so key for your mental well-being. It is the most important thing you can do.
I agree 100%. And I think too, and going back to this guy I had on my show, there's this like correlation I've noticed, and maybe you can relate to this. So I'll say this, like the word addiction comes off as like a negative, but I think a lot of times entrepreneurs have an addictive personality. And if you can shift it though towards something positive, like your business or health, it becomes a positive. So like the cool thing to know is in health, with like the advances that there are today, you can go down a rabbit hole that is endless. Like, if, you can sleep in hyperbaric chambers, like you can feel really good, and it never ends. Like, so that's one thing. If you want to become healthier, there is always something more you could do. It might be expensive, but like it's there. And then marketing for a business, that's the thing I love about marketing is it's truly limitless, so the way I see the flow of it is like, I need to be healthy enough that I could work 12 hours in a day if I needed to. Right. And so I'm always kind of putting health first. And I think just in summary, a lot of entrepreneurs put health actually last, and then that does not end well. No,
it doesn't. And I learned, 33 years ago when I started on my journey, I learned that you have to put yourself first, period. Mm-hmm. And it's not being selfish. It's if I want to be a good mother, wife, daughter, friend, sister, whatever, I have to take care of me. And so if you want to be a successful business owner, if you want to be a successful author, anything that you're doing, you have to put yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. It's one of the hardest things, especially for, I think, like extroverts, because a lot of times, and I don't know if you're extrovert or introvert, but me, I was always the biggest people pleaser. So anytime somebody would ask me something, like in the beginning of my business, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I'm just saying like it is when you want to scale business. Anything anybody asked me, I'd be like, sure, I'll do it for free. I would do everything for free because I was just trying to help everybody and I didn't want to let anyone down. And then what happens though at the end of that is you end up letting yourself down. Like that's literally what happens. So if you want to be the best version for everybody else, you actually need to ignore them at first and really focus on you. And then you can be the best for them, So as a former people pleaser, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm a former people pleaser too. That's hard to say.
It's like a riddle or something.
So the other question that I love to ask is, what is the best advice you've ever been given that you hold on to this day, every single day to keep you going?
Oh, okay. Best advice. Okay. Can I give like two?
Of course.
Okay. So, and actually I have three, but the first one I'll just skip really quickly. I'll say it really fast. So it's like, there's this quote. It's like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I was at this conference called Mastermind Talks when I was younger. And that was kind of the theme of the event. And Tim Ferriss was actually speaking at it. And it just kind of made me realize, I was like, oh, if I want to like up level my game, I need to start getting out of my comfort zone and hang out with people that are already in the places I want to be. Yep. Right. So, kind of a common sense thing, but I think overlooked a lot of times.
Well, it's who you surround yourself with. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself. That's another one that's pretty commonly said, but profound for sure. The other one that I was going to say, I might forget the third one, but the other one that I wanted to say is that there's a way, and this is actually another company that I have, and I learned this from just doing it myself, but kind of watching other companies grow, you can grow a company without like any risk. And the way that you do it is just through like building relationships and partnerships, right? So from watching my mentors grow their companies, I started to realize like it really wasn't Facebook ads, it wasn't funnels, it wasn't all this fancy stuff, although that can work. What it was is they were building strategic relationships, and I'll bring it all together. For me, I chose book marketing as my main thing. So what I did is I literally reached out to every book publisher in the world that speaks English. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, literally, my company, my assistants and stuff have reached out to every book publisher that has ever existed in this world that speaks English. And we have asked them to hop on a phone call and partner with them. And that's how we've grown our company. So the piece of advice there is just like, don't overcomplicate it. Like, you literally solve a problem, find companies that solve a complementary problem, connect with them, and refer to each other at scale. That's all you have to do. Like, it's not hard. It's actually not hard. Like, it's effort. I want to say that, but the actual how is not complex. The doing, waking up and like staying healthy and actually reaching out to, however, I think there's tens of thousands of publishers for sure. So we've reached out. So I just mean the effort is hard, but the how I feel like can be demystified with that. It's not this magic trick or anything. It's just, like solve people's problems and partner with people. And that's all you got to do.
Love it. That's incredible. So we're almost out of time today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we finish up, and also make sure people know how to get in touch with you?
Well, just based on the theme, so happiness solved, I'd say maybe I'll end it on something with that, is that I'd say in my life, from being like young and having no money and being older and having some money, I really don't feel like my happiness has increased that much. So what I want to say to people is that it really does matter more about like family, friends, and just like, for me, traveling, relationships. Like, I have come to realize the more I seeked money, the less valuable I found it to be. Although it's very valuable and I intend on still increasing it, the things that actually make me the happiest are just literally sitting at the table at my parents' house and having my mom cook me a meal. And that is literally $20, for the food. So I don't know. Hopefully that hits a chord with your audience. Yeah.
Well, what you're saying is that money doesn't buy happiness, period.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, it can help with things, but it's not the core though, to be
right.
And then for me, Authors Unite if you're interested in books, and then my Instagram if you want to connect with me, it's just Tyler B. Wagner is the handle.
Awesome. And I will make sure all of that information is in the show notes as well. Tyler, this has been so delightful today. First of all, you are such a great person to have a conversation with, and I just really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm sure we'll be working together at some point in the future.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.